Hello and welcome to Questions and Answers. I'm Michael Sidgwick, joined by Michael Hamflett, my fellow Dadley boy, to answer your burning wrestling questions. But before we get into it, if you're a fan of this sort of thing, make sure to subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling Podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and YouTube. Where we do a lot of things. We preview and review Raw, SmackDown, the show formerly known as NXT 2.0, Dynamite, Collision, pay-per-views, premium live events. We answer your burning questions. We have wrestler interviews on occasion. We hold roundtable discussions, and we host a roundup of the week, complete with a bloody good quiz, of course, on WrestleCulture, featuring me for bloody once. I got asked,
if anything,
is anybody off? Yeah, loads of people. That's why I got the invitation this week. Thank you very much for that. Hamflett, how are we doing?
All good. Ready for this at least, because, well, I'm sitting in his chair when we do get to WrestleCulture, which by now, people watching this, they'll have already seen how terribly that has gone. But finally feeling recovered off our tour, which will stretch across a gazillion podcasts. But, you know.
Yeah, it was such a good time. Thank you so much for coming out for those who did. Amazing. But we will not be self-indulgent just now, at least. And we'll crack on with your questions. The first of which, thank you for all of them. And thank you if you submitted and we didn't get around to answering. Keep them coming on X, at @MSidgwick, at Michael Hamflett, at WhatCulture WWE. And you might be included in future editions of this podcast.
Unless the Collision preview comes back, of course.
We start today with a very cool video man who says, it's just that the writing's a bit funny. How would you book that return of Hangman Saraya Paige to that Fred? I'm assuming very cool video man is asking if in fact she does make her return to WWE, where we would position Paige. For me, okay, as we saw, as was abundantly clear in AEW, which, yes, prioritizes a higher standard of in-ring than WWE, she didn't really excel there, which would make the following pitch a little bit harder to take. You know what I do like about Saraya Paige, who gets a lot of crap, and, you know, she didn't really have that much in the ring. Facial expressions at the original All In were vile in a good way, and I always like how she does the drop down and tries to do it as an actual trip. Yeah. You know, she's got, you know, at least conceptually, good fundamentals. Look, it would be...
She was bumping in the womb.
Yeah.
That's the story.
Yeah. I don't think it would work because to play this role, one has to be really, really good and or experienced. But because she has those flashes of like an older soul in a younger wrestler's body with the, you know, actually using the drop down as a means to try and trip people up. Look, main roster, I can't see it happening. If I'm WWE and Paige is coming back and we're all for it, why not have her as maybe a heel? She just radiates that quality in fiction anyway. As the gatekeeper of NXT, none of you would be here if it wasn't for me. That kind of thing. And she can play, you know, someone who brings along the younger talent. I'm not necessarily convinced it would, you know, inform any great in-ring wrestling, but it would all kind of make sense.
Yeah, like the worked heel version of her first AEW promo instead of the actual heel one.
Yeah.
When she trotted out the division for that. I think, like, she's a divisive figure, Saraya Paige, but I'll say this. The marketing machine that got behind her was successful then, and to her immense credit, she was able to forge a bond with the WWE audience as Paige, not in the most sort of creatively satisfying times for WWE either. NXT, there was definitely a bit of a launching pad that NXT gave her, and, you know, we've talked at length about how ultimately it was surpassed a lot of times, but what like her and Emma did for the future of the women's division within NXT and then WWE. And I think people have got long memories when it comes to Paige. WWE now would at very least package her with the effort to maximize like her star value. What I'm saying is that like I don't think the matches will ever truly deliver. But
many don't in NXT.
Yeah, maybe she's got more left in them than we've seen thus far. But from the AEW run, what was nice about the AEW run was that it was nice for yet another story of a neck injury, career ender, actually getting reversed and somebody being able to get out there and take bumps again, especially for somebody so young.
Yeah.
She's been at it since she was like 14, so that it's an accumulation, but nonetheless, she was still young. So if WWE was to clear her and she was to get like some opportunities to wrestle in WWE again, you sense she would love that. The character, the presentation, the packaging of Paige, I do think would genuinely do well, short term at least. We are now, as scary as it sounds, entering a period where there will be deep-rooted nostalgia for mid-2010s WWE.
Oh, Jesus
I
Christ.
don't know how it has happened. I would have to
Bad
say...
enough that he's like ruthless aggression.
Well, this is it, right? So this is where we're moving to now. That's times our own marches forward. I don't think this is the sole reason for the incredible responses Alexa Bliss has received for doing almost nothing in this 2025 return, but they've been loud, very obviously loud. And I just think Paige would get as much of that as anybody else. Look at the calls for AJ Lee every time Rumble season comes around.
Yeah.
We're in that run. I think she'd be massive in the short term. I don't know what she offers long term, but
Very little.
I could see it. I could well see it.
Sticking with women's wrestling, Levi W. writes, I'm lucky enough to have a partner who has embraced my wrestling hobby to the point where she watches Dynamite Collision with me every week. She's invested enough that she has asked me to get us tickets to Dynasty.
Nice.
Have a great time if in fact you go. She even watches with me now when I'm watching old New Japan matches. She's picked up on the fact that all the old matches I watch are men's because I don't watch WWE stuff and have only ever explored New Japan Pro Wrestling as far as non-American wrestling goes. What are some good places to start for women's wrestling outside of North America? Any specific old matches, time periods of other promotions I should seek out? If you are not aware of this, one of the most acclaimed periods of professional wrestling ever, full stop, historically, internationally, ever, was the late 80s, early 90s period of All Japan Women's Pro Wrestling. I would start by simply Googling Manami Toyota on YouTube, YouTubing Manami Toyota. I believe the last time I went for a revisit, maybe not the official channels, but there are long matches and many of them featuring Manami Toyota, who is, it's weird to describe it as a good gateway into more modern wrestling. It's like an easier transition. And, if you like more, gritty, older school wrestling, it's sometimes hard to get on that wavelength if you're viewing it through a modern lens. So I believe that Toyota is the best way to sort of gently ease your way into women's wrestling past, because she's so futuristic and so talented that, quite frankly, her work still holds up a lot better than, matches from last month on Dynamite, NXT, Raw, SmackDown. So Toyota is the best means, I think, of sort of adjusting. The agility she shows is off the charts. Some of the stuff she does with the ropes, like, beggars belief in terms of how advanced it is, the poise, like the drama. A lot of, she has a dissenters. Manami Toyota is almost considered like the sort of early 90s, late 80s Will Ospreay, and I love both performers, but some you might notice some fans, some critics say that, Ospreay is more style and substance, does too much, whatever the case may be. A lot of that was directed at Toyota at the time, but she worked with many wrestlers who those people love, so like Aja Kong being a prime example. So whatever your sort of stylistic tastes, Toyota either adheres to them or wrestles someone who adheres to them, if you like. So, and if you want to go further back, Crush Gals, just for the noise, if nothing else, they are one of the most over acts in pro wrestling history. You will not believe your ears when you first delve into that.
It's piercing.
I know. Anything to add?
Not a lot. I will say, because Toyota was one for me, I have found, and it's to my shame, really, that like it'll be matches and then I don't.
Akira Hakuto, there's loads from that era.
I have found that era is so good for if you pick a wrestler, you find a wrestler.
Drama, emotion, noise, work rate. It's got the lot.
It's got all of it.
It just works.
It just works. Need we say more? Only a little bit. Like when you see a singular match and it'll either be a singles or a tag, where it is just simply so like hard hitting, so violent looking, You're like, well, now I need that person out of this existing context. And it just sends you on a million different
Yeah.
wormholes. I had my most recent one with Medusa, of all people, because I just simply, to use a ball knower's phrase, I was not aware of her game. Like, I knew that she was accomplished as opposed to, say, a lot of women in North America in the early 90s when she was like the heel valet of the Dangerous Alliance. But of all things, I saw a Twitter like highlight video. I was like, right, I need the full version of that match. I need the full version of that match. And it happened again where like Medusa led me down a path of various other names that I was having to read up on through Cage Match. And then off you go on that YouTube wormhole. It probably shouldn't be as good as it is, YouTube, for this, but like footage-wise, it can be quite rich.
Yeah.
Like if you find like 2 or 3 names that you like, you will be amazed how quickly you then, because it's impossible to sort of say, like you can read around the rivalry, but for the most part, we're talking matches here that are going to, but to your point, are going to give you the whole vibe as well.
Yeah.
Every match sets its own scene, doesn't it? And like the women are they're so strong in the way they perform, and you can just tell how they're vibing off the audience that you don't need much more in the way of context.
Yeah.
You're pretty much in it.
And it's a good time to revisit, I would say, before we move on to the next question, because a lot of pro wrestling now, the crowds are performative. It's hard for AEW, this good run of recent form aside, to really feel like it's the epicenter. It's what everyone cares about earnestly in their hearts. I suspect a lot of people are gradually coming around on the idea of AEW getting back to somewhere near its best without really feeling we are all the way back. If you are missing emotion from your professional wrestling, going back to that era, I mean, the drama and emotion is off the charts.
The timing of this question is good as well, because as we're recording, the Queen of the Ring film, the Mildred Burke story's just come out, and that's another like little gateway. You will get names, you will get sort of...
It's not meant to be good.
Is it not meant to... I've not heard any reviews of it. All right, okay.
Meant to be good.
Well,
So
maybe
just
not
stick
that.
to what I say and not what he says.
Maybe not that.
Thank you for your question. Thank you also to Santino V. Guile at Tino Bug. What's your favorite tag team finisher of all time? There are so many of them are goated. So many of them are goated. I'm going to just do stream of consciousness for a few minutes while Hamflett develops his answer in his head.
You'll take it. I've got it.
Okay, right. Right. You cannot do anything like this now, nor would I ever want to see it. Viewed through the lens of my 8-9-year-old self, 7, 8, 9. The Shaker Heights Spike by the Beverly Brothers. Never do that again. Never do that again. Never do that again. Maybe watch it on YouTube once in a while to treat yourself. It was disgusting. It was deplorable. Absolutely not on. If you want to beat someone in a match, you'd probably use that move. I love the Doomsday Device because it's like the Shaker Heights Spike in terms of that transgressive danger. There is a way to do it safely, but it never felt that way in the rush, no pun intended, of the moment. The idea is you've got this heavily steroided monster coming at you while you're on the shoulders of another heavily steroided monster, and you can only fall backwards. Can you imagine doing a backflip after being smashed in the face from a great height? The lack of control you can feel when you look at those terrified jobbers is really something. Put it this way, I buy that as a finisher every single time.
Yeah.
Honorable mentions to, I love, even though Dax Harwood can be very irritating, the Shatter Machine. It takes a great invention, Marufuji's Code Breaker, and it turns it into something more spectacular with more of that lunging sort of like that spike in the heart rate when you see someone get lifted up. It's almost impossible to counter because you can only really, you can't do anything. You're being hoisted up by this barrel-chested dude, and then you are being driven into the knees of somebody else. And you can't really defend yourself against it if you want to talk about the logic of the finisher and all the rest of it. I also love, on 2 levels, the Melter cum TK Driver.
Yeah.
I love that. You can look at it 2 ways. One, if you are properly into the idea and you've got a little bit of latitude towards logic, like doing a somersault probably doesn't add much to the actual spike, but in your wrestling fan brain, you think, all right, okay, well, rotations equals velocity equals impact. I don't know if there's no scientific evidence to support this, but it is scientific fact.
That's right.
In the brain of wrestling fans. So I love it. It looks spectacular. Really takes a lot of unbelievable timing. Quick story on that. If you've not read the Young Bucks autobiography, they were tossing around that idea when they were traveling, talking about it at shows like, can we do it? Can we do it? Frank Kazarian said, oh, you know that move you've been talking about. I'll take it on this PWG show. I'll take it. Why the hell not? What was this hilarious thing on BTE? Kazarians.
What do you mean? Well, I don't know.
Kazarian used to say something really... Do you? That was it.
Oh, God, yeah.
Do you want to do that move? Because I'll take it, is what Frankie Kazarian said. They first did it before a PWG show, and of all people, and of all years, 2015 or thereabouts, Ricochet was like, I cannot believe you've done this. And it's like, this is Ricochet saying it. And I also love, other than the spectacular flourish, even if you don't buy that, it's so extraneous and pointless and flippy that around that time, the Young Bucks just existed to piss off the establishment and the old guard. Mm-hmm. So it works, even if it makes no sense, because they're just pissing people off in it, and it works. Interject, otherwise I'll talk about tag team finishers all day long.
I got one that is an actual standout favourite, but I thought
it's a Powerplex.
It's the goddamn Powerplex.
Yeah.
It's a goddamn Powerplex. And it is by Power and Glory, not FTR. And this is important because, like, Hercules doing a superplex off the top rope when superplexes were kill shots, relatively speaking, is enough. He's absolutely jacked. He's a monster. You're taking a power move off a power guy that is also elevated. In traditional wrestling terms, that is it, baby. But they weren't just power, Sid. They were called Power and Glory. The way that it would happen in one fluid motion.
Power and Glory.
With a tag that allows, like, Romeo Roma to run across it, just like a gazelle, just like run across the apron, get on that top rope. He's just flexing and waiting. Yeah, get him, Hulk. And, like, Hercules would do the superplex. And the splash, watch it back. It's not even that good in terms of, like, a big splash. But the timing is unbelievable.
FTR need to study more tape.
There's no practice to that either. They're not like sort of like hitting the performance center practice ring, the spongy one, and thinking, never mind, we go again. 50 drills until they get it right. They've probably got, like a handful of house shows?
Yeah.
Like dodgy knees, accidentally landing an elbow or a knee in someone's face, whoever was taking it the
tough
first time.
titties.
Never saw a duff one on camera, I know that much. The timing of it was absolutely stunning. Loved it. Just such
FTR's, I wish they'd stop doing it. Or do it better.
He's already hit the mat. There's a pregnant pause. Then he hits the spot. That's not the point. He's supposed to be trapped on the ground, already knocked out. And then you got this asshole hitting you from the top. Yeah. It is magic. I've got to give credit because every time I watch an old match, I am just so amazed at how unbelievably over it is. And then when it was borrowed, ultimately taken by a new act, how it's still over to this day. The noise, the ripple when the Dudleys even teased the 3D is incredible. Yeah. You feel it in the building. And when the Usos took it and just added the 1 for the 1D, they used it like, time stamping this. They used it when they made their first like tag match together in years on a Raw in the UK. And the fans clocked it. It's one of the few things that like the fans still clock and are excited and waiting for it while there's still quite a lot to do. Like the wrestlers only hit the ropes and then you're looking at the positioning of Bubba and Steve on how Jimmy and Jay. And yes, here it comes. So they get the anticipation, to your point about the shot machine, while the opponents can do nothing about it. And generally, I'm sure there are examples, none are coming at the top of the mind with the Usos, doesn't get kicked out of a lot. So the kill shot factor remains as well.
Yeah, absolutely. One more honorable mention here. The Steiner DDT Doomsday device.
Oh my God, yeah.
I mean it's just, it's reckless. It looks like it kills. It probably did.
They put WCW Classics on Sky Sports on a morning when we were a lot younger. And I was watching that with my breakfast, and they did it to some poor jobber on a 1990 episode. And my dad just like, look, Jesus Christ, like just snapped him out of reading the paper because of the drop of the guy's head from that height.
Yeah.
Straight into the mat.
Yeah.
They didn't give a damn.
They didn't give a good goddamn. Priyank asks, and I'm going to half answer this question, all will become clear. Create a wrestling event as an emotional roller coaster for the other Dadley. Consider everything from the venue to the stipulations to, of course, the matches. From annoyance to excitement, from anger to jubilance. Also, consider making one together for Willie. Now, that is a pod in and of itself. Mm-hmm. It would take ages. So instead, I'm going to half answer what is an excellent question and think of the most torturous experience for my fellow Dadley boy. And I've arrived at, first of all, we are going to hold it at Madison Square Garden.
Great.
Instantly, an expectation, sentiment, by God, a love.
I bought a ticket while you were saying that.
Yeah, swells within Hamflett, the anticipation, the romance, the sense of nothing at MSG could possibly go wrong. He's bought his ticket. It's MSG. The garden's always the garden.
That's it.
No, it's not Boston. There's a garden in Boston, but we're talking about Madison Square Garden, not the garden.
The garden.
I would headline this show that Hamflett's bought a plane for, a great expensive flight. He's got digs. They're not great, but the flight costs a lot of money.
I'm front row grinning, snack in hand. They've even given me a tray, and I've already taken a picture of the roof.
Yeah.
I'm so happy.
Yeah. And it's going to be headlined by 1999 Undertaker against 1999 Undertaker.
Oh, no.
Doing a gauntlet of the AEW Collision 2025 mainstays. Just that's it for 3 hours. Just Taker.
Just they keep on coming.
Taker versus Dax Harwood. Taker versus Wheeler Yuta. Taker versus Daniel Garcia.
The whole crew.
The whole crew. You love that, don't you?
Oh,
you love
God.
1999 Undertaker and good matches.
I couldn't even get, because obviously, naturally, it's the Garden. Taker squashes them all with ease.
Yeah, with
I
ease.
still wouldn't get a lot out of that, because 1999 Taker is absolutely abysmal. He looks terrible. He can't gear anymore. He's carrying a lot of injuries. The gimmick just doesn't belong.
Just doesn't work.
I hate it. I can't decide.
Imagine the ick of like everyone going, I could do some business with old Taker, even though his hips are giving him some bother now, and like they're working around it.
I thought you were gonna like say sort of like 1999 Take comes out and he wants to like prove, even though he's still in the goth attire, he's like wanting to prove that he's kind of like the best pure strike now.
Yeah.
To face his suit bones, like out comes like Timothy Thatcher.
Oh yeah, that works. It all works.
Just a chatting match at Madison Square Garden. Got
anything that I would hate?
Get the out of here.
Have you got anything I would hate? And I will say, because I've got one in my head that I would hate.
You would hate. Right, we're going to venues are quite difficult. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to film Daly's place from the pandemic angle, but I'm going to fill it with neon boards, especially the barricades. That's crucial. Like all the barricades have become neon boards now. You're never getting barricades again.
Oh,
ever. The stage is actually no, because they did that for Grand Slam. It looked pretty good. Stage is stage. I think you're okay with stages.
I don't give a damn.
You're there, Daly's. The neon boards there. I don't like that, but it's okay because here comes Kenny Omega. And you're like, oh, thank God I'm seeing Kenny Omega at Daly's.
Get it?
This is a spiritual experience. I can't believe this. Hey, I didn't even check the card. There's no time to check. I'll just wait for his opponent. Oh, yeah. And Matt Hardy comes out. And the thing is, Sidge, it is this timeline. So you thought he was back in the Fed. You thought he was in an NXT Out Your Way forever. He's not. He's all the way back. And he's taking the international title with him. He beats him.
So I understand the emotional, like the deal of, hopes raised, hopes dashed. For me, for the ultimate, maybe you could just go like the ultimate bleak experience. What would be my ultimate? Shut up, mate. Shut up, mate.
Rolls the old shoulder.
That'd be worse than Omega giving him it. Just decides to have it for himself. My ultimate bleak pro wrestling experience in terms of one card, right, would be like one of those classic, those territory show long things like Pressure Bandage Mid-South, Empty Arena, Funk Lawler, where it's all built around the one match, Yeah. It would be Capital Wrestling Center venue, all built around a grudge match where it's all these guys. Capital Wrestling Center, Triple H versus Matt Hardy, or Road Dogg versus Matt Hardy, but probably Triple H versus Matt Hardy, one match show, all the build around them two promoing on each other and then wrestling for half an hour. I would hate that more than anything.
Triple H being taken to the compound but trying to no-sell it. Like no-selling the broken universe.
Yeah.
Just like knocking like the law.
That would be funny, though. That would be funny.
Because his ego would just allow him.
It's just because Matt Hardy wouldn't like that.
That's true.
Yeah.
You get something.
And Matt Hardy just with nothing but the barrels in between the barrels.
Triple H just goes into the Lake of Reincarnation, but he only likes the bit because he comes out as 2002 Triple H. He's like, good lake. One of your nuts is hanging out.
Good lake. Good lake.
Oh, we were thinking you could come out as a Greenwich snob. Just keep getting bigger.
Yeah, bigger.
The lake keep getting jacked.
Bigger's better.
Change the lake.
Bigger is better. Alan Price, and I swear this is true, you can go on Twitter, says, no great questions to ask, so I just want to say thank you, guys. Your opinions and bits that you don't do get so many of us through the day. We appreciate the hell out of all you guys. Have the best weekend. Thank you, you too.
Thanks, Alan. Thank you very much. We should do some bits once in a while. We don't really do bits.
We should probably implement a bit.
What podcast do bits? We don't do bits.
Next question came from a man I was fortunate enough to meet just this week. And it's Fraser Cranium.
Ah, yeah.
Lovely
legend.
Bloke. Lovely to meet him. Wish I could have had more time with him.
Yeah.
But alas.
We all said that around the table the next morning. You must know that, Fraser. We did say that, that was the one small regret we got from Glasgow, wasn't it? It was just getting started.
Yeah. I think the problem as well is we need to be out of that room. There was a hard out. People were leaving for the house show and all the rest of it. But nonetheless, it was absolutely a pleasure to meet you.
Catch your ass down the road.
Catch your ass down the road. I want to go back on those roads.
I miss them every day.
I want to go up and down those roads. That tour did something to my heart. It warmed it. Oh, cockles.
Sometimes warm is better.
Indeed. Here's my Mount Rushmore of wrestlers, says Fraser, who made wrestling more exciting and interesting. Whether or not they made it better is another chat through wild unpredictability. CM Punk, Bruiser Brody, Charlotte Flair, Scott Steiner. What's yours? Look, Cody, I always say, I started this job in 2016. Literally the month after Cody goes, I need to leave. And everyone's like, do you? Because you got a pretty cushy gig there and you ain't going to do any better than that.
Yeah.
And I'm not being funny. Meltzer wrote in The Observer, there's not a single person going, God, Cody should leave and go to New Japan. He just didn't have the credibility, that he wasn't fashionable really as a pro wrestler. He, in fact, decided to leave WWE and bet on himself at a time when, Kenny Omega's about to blow the whole work rate thing, which is already fashionable,
He
sideways.
likes saying about Austin Theory now, and I don't mean that to be cruel to either guy.
Yeah.
But, good, competent, occasional flashes.
Cody had shown at Battleground 2013.
Yeah, there was.
But then that felt like an aberration, didn't it?
Totally. There was a hot baby face in there, but it was just a moment. It was just
and not the times as well.
Yeah.
Not in New Japan resurgence, goes from strength to strength times, So Cody, the thing is, not only is he, helped instrumental in forming AEW, for which I'll always be grateful. He's elevated WWE before, Levesque took the creative. That was already trending. He's made WWE feel big again. He made AEW competition. And he's a bit smarter than he used to be as Cody. I love him. He used to open that damn mouth and say some things that got people pissed off. He's underrated as a stirrer, as someone who just says stuff. And it's like, should he be saying that? A former discourse starter. He was a bit wiser. So he does have that chaotic element running through him. Cody's on mine. I mean, Punk's on there as well.
What was the exact terms that Fraser offered there?
Mount Rushmore of wrestlers who made wrestling more exciting and interesting through wild unpredictability.
Night is Shawn Michaels for me.
Yeah.
I take that guy, warts and all. I say that about Punk a lot these days, but it's for very different reasons. But one very similar one, which is just their sheer bloody-minded belief in themselves can create a world of problems. Yeah. But few do it better on screen because of that confidence. It lifts them 10 foot tall when they're stood on their wallets.
Suck it!
Very different reasons why their brains worked the way they did. But Knight is Shawn. I cannot get enough of that man. I'm a Brett guy, and I cannot get enough of Knight is Shawn. Yeah. He does something to me, and God knows how many lives he's ruining behind the scenes. Sometimes you can see it happening in the match. Yeah. And he's still I find him irresistible in his Knight is Punk. Yeah.
A more recent installment, considering, I don't wish to bring about the downfall of the Fed, but every time Dwayne The Rock Johnson comes up, I'm like, how's he going to retcon this? Does he still care about this? What are we doing here? I don't know, it makes my life a little bit more tolerable.
Do you know who's getting it back for me? Not necessarily as an agent of chaos in the way we thought she might have been, but seeing Mercedes Moné hit form again has been great.
Yeah.
And Sasha Banks had that for me. And then it got silly and I was like, I like this morph, how daft y'all getting. But when the work wasn't backing it up, it wasn't as charming. She feels all the way back.
Yeah.
I'm loving that.
Absolutely. Do you have any more for this? Because you like a nice, pleasant time, but you do like a bit of drama as well.
Yeah.
You mostly like a nice, coherent time with your Fed.
He possibly goes underrated for this, But I love when the little tidbits come out of like Kenny bantering off half the locker room. Just
yes,
the
80%
comment and stuff like
great.
that. That's kind of what it's all about.
Yeah.
Like, and again, it comes down to a bit of like self-belief. Like wrestling is this thing that asks everything of everybody all the time. You've got to be this, but you've also got to be this. But they contradict each other. Yeah. Tough titties, it's a business. That confidence, when it stays on the right side of arrogance, is intoxicating, isn't it?
Yeah.
And certain people have that, and he does.
Shane had a good little run there, Shane McMahon.
Yeah, yeah.
Like the quest to prove how hard he is in his own head yielded some quite hilarious results for a few years. Like I'll win the Rumble. What are
you doing?
Literally, what are we doing here? That was good. It's like, wait a minute. When did he become Pat Patterson? Like, why are you booking this? What are we doing?
Fraser really might have put his finger on something here. Is that, if you cycle through, does that explain just why the reconfiguration era, fat end of 20 years, was so bad? Because nobody was permitted to even have a little bit of this.
Yeah.
Punk was one of the, not many. Cena was the leader of it, and he was the opposite of what that meant to be.
Yeah.
Bryan was this accidental figurehead that was almost like apologetic in taking it.
Yeah.
Batista was homegrown. Orton was like kind of ground up guys. There's nobody, is there? There is just nobody that leaps out there, unless I'm forgetting somebody obvious. Just nobody that leaps out from that era, because it was like, that's the one thing we need gone. We never want that again. Never. It's not worth the trouble.
Trouble.
Glad we got a bit of trouble back.
Thank you very much.
Great question.
And again, lovely to meet you. And indeed, it was lovely to meet everyone on those meet and greets on the tour, man. So good to meet everyone. Just
best thing we do.
Yeah, absolutely the best thing we do. Absolutely the best thing we do. Callum Rogers says, I read your top 30 AEW matches so far. A great list, if you don't mind me saying.
How did that get in there?
How did that question slip through the net? It's real. You can go on Twitter under the replies to my question. Of course, I don't mind you saying thank you very much. I've had a little bit of nice feedback about that. I was really happy about it. But what was the one match you found most difficult to leave out? There's two. Like, as I wrote in the intro, there's 250. Like, Danielson Rush didn't make it. I was like, gee, that match was unbelievable. So that's probably an honorable mention. I found it enormously difficult to leave out anything from that February 2020 TV era. I did put Nyla Rose versus Riho 2 from there, because I thought that match was outstanding. There is a dive from Riho to the outside, which is the ultimate. How did that move get countered? When it's just it just feels like the move's been hit. Then you get that, no, it hasn't.
Yeah.
She does that dive, and Nyla, catches her, but at the same time as catching her, she's almost bumping, but then she lifts up. It's incredible. But I was in love with AEW in February 2020. Every single week, I was in love. I'm going to watch a 9.5 out of 10 pro wrestling trifecta extravaganza here. And guess what? The good times are all to come. Kenny Omega and Hangman Page versus the Lucha Brothers. It's nothing really ambitious.
Didn't make the list.
But I really agonized over it. Everything they do is completely perfect, non-stop. It's exhilarating. You get that story of Paige and Omega, they are only ever one cock up away from potentially splitting up, and what a shame that would be, because they've both found each other and they're both together. They need each other to get form, and obviously Kenny's using that as, well, that's good. You can form me up, son, and I'll just turn on you when I've got my form on it. There's a cruelty to it, and there's an emotion to it all. There's always that one miscommunication spot, which obviously Kenny, being in the Golden Lovers, was perfect at, and he knew exactly what he was doing. And that match is just awesome. Everything they do looks incredible, and it's this agonizing, please don't split up. Please don't split up. I'm loving this act. I know you will do, but not yet, not yet, not yet, not yet. So you have that emotional tension and that cutting-edge, state-of-the-art, flawless execution in this brisk as all hell TV match that is so exciting, and you can't believe you're seeing it. Oh, that's the finish, and I wasn't ready to end. So brisk and economical, and the brevity of it, the antidote to so much of modern pro wrestling of, it's going 20 minutes because you need to have a classic, or it's going 25 because that's the length. It just... one of those where I'm scared that it's going to be the finish, at least 5 minutes before it, Also, there's a match, that I believe is the most other than a match which did get included, Elite versus Hangman Page and Dark Order All Out 2022, which I included because it's a masterpiece, but not many people talk about it because there was something more significant to talk about after the fact.
Sometimes promos are better than matches.
Why does no one talk about what an unbelievable match this was? Young Bucks versus Jurassic Express, which I believe was the impetus for Tony Khan in storyline to say, nah, we need to do a cage for the next one because he's not taking the piss with this new Elite and all the cheating that you're doing. It was just action on top of action on top of, like, you cannot screw them this much. There's so many unbelievable hope spots, and I'm pretty sure there's a Luchasaurus Canadian Destroyer in there, and it just felt like, especially in this era, and I've talked about this off and on throughout our podcasting careers of there's no such thing as real heat, but wrestling strives for it, and it's all a bit hollow in a way, and we play along. I remember, like, that building, the sentiment was, they can't keep getting away with this, man. I love to hate stuff, but, like, it was really like they're taking the piss, these Young Bucks. It was just a little bit of an approximation of that actual elusive heat.
Yeah, like they would do their comeuppance in a way that felt real, as opposed to now is the time we get to the comeuppance bit that actually worked, like the fiction of that, like, heel finally gets theirs, and you don't really get that now authentically, do you?
Yeah,
it's more fun to just boo along in a pantomime way than it is to getting. Who's got to get these?
Absolutely. So that's a pretty selfish question because it pertains to a list I wrote, which you can still read, whatculture.com/WWE. So I'll throw it to you if you've got anything off the top of your head. I don't know, hidden gem AEW match that doesn't get talked about is, like, you know, the Revolution tag, Ospreay, Danielson.
This probably made your list, but I don't. I think it must be a pandemic thing, and I get it. But the way in which kind of conversation is basically stalled to a stop on the multi-man, the one in particular where you get the flying Canadian Destroyer.
Oh, that didn't make the list, but that was unbelievable. So it's 4-on-4, Butcher, Blade, Lucha Brothers versus FTR and
Young Bucks. So it's in the period where...
Destroy to the outside. I'm sorry, I've stepped on your dick and I've talked enough. Why hasn't AEW done that spot in front of fans?
Yeah. It's perfect.
It would get the absolute eruption of a pop.
I remember so much about how great and thrilling the match was, and just this exhibition of. I was always pretty low on that early era of that type of AEW match, and that sort of won me round. It was that I remember feeling at the time. It was like
the Dax Harwood stuff was unbelievable.
That was it, yeah. Like the story, the fact that
characters,
FTR, as we would see, were obviously playing the long game with getting the title shot, with drawing Hangman Page away from the Young Bucks and doing everything to their own script. Ultimately, when they spotted a weakness within the Elite, but in order to do that, you've got to look like you want to hang with them first, and then Dax inadvertently letting the mask slip when he saw the match, betraying the type of business he loved.
Was unbelievable.
Yeah. And it's like that 1 second where he gets to be the character of, I hate this, but, like, we've got to be strange bedfellows for a little bit longer, and then lock him back in, and, like, understanding, like, the assignment for that week for FTR.
Because we need to tear the Elite apart, really.
Yeah, it was creatively inspired as well as being just, like, visually arresting. When, to your point, you were popping nobody but keeping your fingers crossed for the people at home.
Yeah.
Like, I think of that spot as the wrestlers coming through my screen, and that's supposed to be the point of all of those dives and all of those high spots and stuff. So that's a one for me, and I just think it must suffer because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
To a similar extent, but just because it means a lot. I think I was watching with a tear in my eye, Deeb and Riho from the Double or Nothing buy-in. Like, that's one of them moments where you just, because obviously for those that don't remember, Double or Nothing 2021 was the first return to proper crowds, full dailies for the first time. You might remember Mox and Eddie Kingston's entrance kind of celebrating that the most, but that played out on the buy-in, so it didn't even come from the traditional angle. What you got was just like a bunch of fans that were lit up by the sun. The
sun literally setting on the pandemic era.
It was beautiful.
You know,
it was genuinely beautiful. As a wrestling fan that had got through that, as so many of us had, that match to me will always be there. Like, how often can you say it now and it'd be true? We're so back.
Yeah.
And we were just about to head into AEW's 2021 summer. We were so back, and it was such a good match.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Panda Blair, who, of course, takes care of the data for Ladies' Night on our AEW coverage, asks, and I'm going to go take it in a different direction, who do you think is the best enhancement talent of all time? I've got 3 answers for this, and none of them could be technically, strictly classed as enhancement talents. Put it this way, if I'm a booker and I've got access to these three, I'm putting them on every single goddamn show. Sean Waltman.
Yeah.
Darby Allin, Mick Foley. In terms of if you want...
Well, that's the strictest definition of the word.
Yeah. If you want a pushed project to look like this world-beating killer, right? Darby Allin and Mick Foley. To a lesser extent, Waltman, but he made everyone look good. But Foley and Darby surrender their bodies to the cause in such a way that's so committed that it almost obscures how well crafted their individual performances are at making people look amazing.
Yeah.
Foley has made Undertaker and Triple H, he just did. He still to this day had, by what is some distance, the best match Randy Orton will ever have. Mm-hmm. Darby Allin, it's like, that age-old argument of what's better? Is it better to peak really, really high? What's better? Arsenal's Invincibles season or Man City's consecutive, we'll just win all the time. And it gets a bit boring, but we get results, Not to say Darby's boring, but you know what I mean? It's like Darby does it so consistently. Like he made Joe look the best he has since Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
He had Andrade's best matches in AEW, if you remember those.
If somebody asks, like, so-and-so had good matches, all right, against who? And the first one that goes Darby Allin, like, well, I need more than that. Yeah. Because he's the common denominator over and over again.
Darby Allin, as Sting himself will probably tell you, was just instrumental in making that actual pro wrestling magic of the Sting late career run, end of career run, soar as high as it did. So Darby's done it more consistently, but obviously Foley with, Royal Rumble 2000, Backlash 2004, Hell in a Cell, Boiler Room Brawl. He's done it in a more iconic way, but those two, for me, I would love to book them. If I ever did like a fantasy booking card and really thought about it, Foley and Darby would be the first names on the sheet outside of my big dream match.
They're true enhancement talents because they enhance, it's a good question because it obviously then you start cycling through jobbers and stuff. But really, is there an argument to be made that like a jobber that is so entertaining becomes a bit like the referee? You notice you're sort of not supposed to.
Yeah.
So you could argue that they're doing the job either like not well enough or they're doing it too well.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if this is who Panda Blair's thinking of here, but when you kind of reel off the likes of Barry Horowitz or an Iron Mike Sharp or those jobbers you remember ultimately from television when it was more of a common thing, the fact that they were kind of getting over on their own terms undoes what might be needed to help the other talent. I'll just to add to your list, but in very much more of a jobber to the stars way, which I don't think is a negative, by the way. I'm not using that term as a negative. Spike Dudley was another guy that could like get a concept of a wrestler over. Like Bam Bam Bigelow was so much physically bigger than everybody else in ECW, and he had with him a bit of aura from his time at the top. But how do you truly illustrate that? You chuck Spike Dudley into row 12.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like there are moments that sort of Spike Dudley was able to contribute to, and they were doing it right the way through past when Axe, it still wasn't enough. Think of like how much like heat La Resistance got on Spike Dudley, how much the Dudley Boys, when they had to turn heel, got on Spike Dudley. Like he was so there. Mike Awesome as the ECW World Champion to become the guy that is going to kill people to keep this title. Like he was so good, Spike Dudley. And it wasn't just as simple as, well, he's really small. Yeah. You've got to take those bumps with a splat. You've got to take those bumps that look like bullying. Do you remember The Undertaker winning the hardcore title? Like, how is this not going to look weird? Well, you give him Spike Dudley and you brutalize him. Like, there are so many different wrestlers that benefited uniquely from Spike Dudley. The 80s version of that, the 80s juiced and jacked fed monsters. Before he became the genius, Lanny Poffo was quite good to chuck around as well. Yeah.
Quiros, I have almost certainly butchered that. I am sorry. Says, hello, Michaels. Two questions. A second question. First, how would you book Liv Morgan's big singles match at next year's WrestleMania? Here's my match, because I'm fairly certain through years of experience watching this great business that she's turning babyface this year.
100%.
She is turning. I mean, it's not even a hot take. It's not even a great insight.
Too popular across the board.
Yeah, too popular, too undeniable. She wants it too much. I reckon Liv Morgan chasing Charlotte Flair for the title.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that makes all the goddamn sense in the world.
The true sort of believable replacement figure, the one that, look, I've done it, mate. While you were gone, I think I lapped you, actually.
Yeah.
And let's prove it. Like, Charlotte actually puts her working boots on.
Yeah. Charlotte Flair's good at destroying people. Liv Morgan's good at selling things like death. I think stylistically it's a good match.
I am very curious in 2025 to see if Triple H has still got the creative flair, or if, for that matter, has got the interest to follow through on what feel to me like a lot of subtleties about the Bianca Belair heel turn. Because seeing a heel Bianca Belair like physically dominate like plucky babyface Liv Morgan, and the perspective match quality of that is really interesting to me.
Yeah.
Not seen that dynamic ever.
Yeah.
And the match quality with Liv Morgan's improvement and Bianca Belair's consistency feels like another one that would stand up for itself on a WrestleMania stage. So I like
if she remains heel, yeah.
Yeah. So, no, I'm saying if like we get the Liv Morgan babyface turn, but these little hints of Bianca's turn follow through.
Both work.
Yeah.
It all works.
It's all good stuff.
Works. It's all good stuff. Second question is, would it be beneficial for Jay to lose against Gunther, or is it all about the big yeet moment and a short reign afterwards would be fine? Very quickly, because I know Hamflett's going to talk not too long. I want to fit some questions in the 8 minutes we have left. I'm getting soft in my old age, and this is maybe why it's working. I've seen footage of the kids yeeting. I've talked to a young lad at the Glasgow show in a yeet t-shirt. I've seen the footage of Jay actually yeeting alongside kids. I'd be kind of heartbroken for the kids who love him if he loses at this point. So
the biggest one ever, isn't it?
Just give him the win. You're being a dick if you don't at this point.
We've talked about this at length, so I'll keep this brief. There is a podcast I would very much welcome people to watch. It's on our YouTube channel or listen to it wherever you get them. WWE is ruining the road to WrestleMania 41. We went long, but I think it's a worthwhile listen. One of the very few things we praise is Jey Uso versus Gunther, and one of the many reasons is I think both outcomes work. I also want the biggest yeet ever in Las Vegas. However, Gunther winning, there aren't many characters that can crush dreams quite like Gunther. So I think this is good booking. When not a lot in WWE is, I'm kind of still fighting for the Gunther Jey Uso title match to main event night one.
Yeah, and if Gunther does beat Jey Uso and it's harsh and he gets really over the top as a heel, CM Punk Gunther SummerSlam. Yeah, it's all good stuff.
Booking 101.
He's glad to know that there's options left because the Fed looks like it's cooling down rapidly. We have time for 3 more questions.
Let's do it.
We're going to go to Paul, who says, sort of question. You guys discussed Ospreay's role at Dynasty. How about they start the Owen at Dynasty? Couple of first-round matches, final at Double or Nothing, then build to All In. On that, who do you think wins the women's Owen? It's certainly a possibility. Anything's possible. It is a work. It is early if you look at the prior editions of the Owen Cup for them to do this. So I don't know. If you look, I've got an idea, though, for Ospreay, right? So I don't hate that idea. I just worry, especially if it's like an 8-man and an 8-woman bracket, that they can pad it out, especially when those first rounds are pretty predictable as it is. So I don't know. And usually the semi-finals are as a result of, because you know who's going to be in them, So instead, I had an idea for Ospreay. Because if you look at, he's already gone through the Callis family quite a few times, even though they're being kept in the mix and kept strong on the back of Dynamite this week. The saving Paige, so not him. Jay White in the Owen is a possibility because we've not seen that in AEW, I don't believe. And they've got incredible in-ring chemistry. I mean, it's Ospreay's got in-ring chemistry with everyone. Dynasty falls the day after Sakura Genesis, so I don't know if there's going to be any. Sometimes the likes do a little bit of cross promotion. Who knows? I don't know about that. A CMLL guy, like Dorada potentially, because he's been getting some raves for his in ring over the past year, particularly. I would do Ospreay versus Hologram. You have to beat Hologram at some point. Right, it's not Goldberg. The streak doesn't really matter that much, okay? But they can market it like it matters, and you put those two together, and it's like, oh, hang on, this is kind of big for Hologram. What if he beats Ospreay, and Ospreay's inevitable rise to the top of the card is delayed somewhat, in a similar Hangman Page, Brian Cage, like, oh, this guy might have my number. We'll have to do a return match and then a rubber match. Like, a shock. Like, Hangman Page had that shock, and it makes things feel less inevitable. You give Hologram the rub of beating, of all people, Ospreay, and Hologram is mind-blowing exciting. Some of the stuff he does blows my mind, and I've seen a lot of this stuff and derivations of this stuff. I'm not saying Beast Mortos isn't an awesome base, but Will Ospreay's different gravy. Will Ospreay versus Hologram could be a mega Vikingo tier, where you get a master craftsman who's so unbelievably great and refined that they just don't make mistakes. There's no those janky moments you sometimes get in a hologram match. They will not exist if Ospreay's working them. So I think you've got this. Oh, hang on. Someone's either hologram's always got to go or Ospreay's path to the top isn't that inevitable. I think you can get some drama out of that. I think you can build a short-term program out of it. And it would be hologram's best ever showing. Hologram plus refinement plus big match drama on pay-per-view could be something incredible.
It's proper one goes over, one gets over booking, isn't it? Yeah. For the women, I'll take the women's side. I would really like Mercedes Moné to win it. She's a belt collector, and she adds the Owen belt to her collection and confirms that she gets the title match at All In.
Yeah.
And you go with it. You go with, can the belt collector beat Timeless Toni Storm and have all of it?
Yeah.
Or is she going to suffer a first loss on the biggest stage against Timeless Toni Storm in this all-star?
That's a big match.
It's huge.
That is
huge.
Absolutely huge. 2 more questions. Duke McGrath says, something that Nicholas touched on with Cope at the Belfast show. Do you have a favourite wrestler that you struggle to keep at the top of your list? Or was that Jericho in my Mount Rushmore, but it's been a struggle recently to justify keeping him there? It's weird, right? I make fun of Hamflett for being too loyal. He should have stopped watching the Fed when it was rubbish. Maybe his brain wouldn't be so broken if it was. I'm not loyal to that many people, but I feel like I'm a good picker. So when I pick someone as my favourite wrestler for that time, they tend to go on to do great things and never stop being brilliant. Bret Hart, Steve Austin, The Rock, Danielson, CM Punk, Kenny Omega is kind of like my timeline.
I was going to call this a humble brag, but it's just a brag.
It's just a brag. It's just a brag. So is there anyone that I've really loved once upon a time and now just want nothing to do with? Not that love tier. There's, like, I'm with Jericho. At times, he's popped the absolute tits off my chest, you know? But there was never a deep-rooted, I love this bloke, and I will defend him, and I love watching him. Never that with Jericho, but I've had favorites. You know what? For whatever reason, right? Maybe Angle. He's not done anything wrong.
No.
Maybe because of the TNA thing. Just never really was a TNA person. I was
Such
already
a run
having
as well.
I know, but I was already having my intelligence violently insulted by WWE. I didn't need another promotion to do that for me. And maybe because I missed a lot of those peak matches and I don't have much in the way of nostalgia for the Fed, maybe Angle, who is so up there on my list, is tapered off. And maybe his matches, other than one of the best matches ever against Shawn Michaels, which you can watch a long-form review of on our YouTube channel, subscribe to it. Maybe the best ones that I loved at the time have been replaced by, I don't know, in the wake of New Japan and AEW, hundreds.
Yeah.
Like, take a Angle, No Way Out. I probably thought that was amazing once upon a time. Probably wouldn't crack my top 500 anymore.
Yeah. No, I get that. I got a million of them. Yeah, I'm loyal. I like a bunch of wrestlers that were only good for 5 minutes and bad for 20 years, and I still like them. The one that jumps out when you ask the question, and it couldn't be for any different reason than Chris Jericho, because she's evidently selfless, is Bayley. Like, it's, I don't say that with any kind of like, yeah, out of the way, yo. It's just, I don't think the work has always supported the argument. Like, I love Bayley at her peak more than most wrestlers I've ever loved, truthfully. But the peak didn't last as long as I would have liked. And it must be hard.
She's kind of finished.
Must be hard to get booked into the ground all those years.
Good job, her name's Pam.
Well, indeed. Nobody can get that, can they? Nobody can get that. They can call her Paley, but they can't get a Pam. Like, it must have been really tough to wade through that terrible booking year on year.
I feel sorry for her, bro.
And her last peak year, I would argue, was still strong. Like, the pandemic, like, run that her and Sasha had together was still, like, it stands up for me. But now, like, she got that title run in 2024, and it just was constantly rooted in sentiment rather than any kind of merit. I'm glad she got it. I'm glad she won the Rumble.
Yeah.
Something nice to tick off for the resume. But the matches just aren't there now.
Some paper achievements, hollow achievements, never mind. Last question comes from Matt Rains, who says, happy birthday, King and Bestie. How can it be Q&A time? There are no letters on a clock. And Matt, he asks, favorite part of the world tour last weekend? Surely it was meeting Fraser Cranium, one of them. Favorite part of the world tour? Well, I guess if you're interested in the answer to that question, and you, dear viewers and listeners, are, you're probably going to have to stay tuned to WrestleCulture. How's that for a goddamn plug? Where we'll
good stuff.
inevitably even, easy for me to say, reminisce on a wonderful time. In addition, talking about stuff that isn't such like self-indulgent, blowing smoke up our own asses. Stick around for WrestleCulture. And if you like self-indulgent pro wrestling podcasts where you barely get what is advertised, why don't you check out the SmackDown preview that is available right now, recorded by Adam Wilborn and Michael Hamflett, definitely on Friday.
100% on Friday.
Definitely on Friday. We'll be back next week. But if you're thinking, oh God, am I alone in thinking this WrestleMania build isn't up to much? No, you're not. Check out our long-form State of WWE address, which is also available wherever you get your podcasts from and on YouTube. But for now, thank you very much for joining us. Make sure to subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling wherever you get your podcasts from for daily wrestling podcasts. Check out the content I was just talking about. Follow us on X at WhatCulture WWE. And whilst you're there, you can follow Michael Hamflett at
Michael Hamflett.
You can follow me at M. Sidgwick. Thank you very much for spending your time with us today. Thank you, and we will see you soon.